Welcome into another edition of Under the Bus. Three old guys who've been on a few buses throwing people under them. Bob Stevens, formerly of ESPN, along with Curry Kirkpatrick, the legendary Sports Illustrated writer, and the legendary coach, Rich Basirico, back together again.
Nice.
I kind of like
it.
this. Yeah,
I do too.
Yeah, the travels of the winter are over, and we're back to work now.
I didn't miss you guys at all. I love doing it. I love
You were
doing
on
it
the
remote.
He's a beach goddess.
Doing it remote sounds cool. So
Okay.
Whatever.
I like this better.
I do too. I think it's great. Let's begin. A whole lot of stuff to talk about. Let's start college basketball. That's you guys' wheelhouse. We're getting ready for the tournament. It's conference tournament week coming up, and then the real deal. A lot of interesting stuff going on with and give us a perspective that.
Well, I like
how different things
the
are.
top teams this year seem to be defined by guys they got from the portal. I mean, I call them Portalists, and there's so many of them that on some of the top teams. I mean, take Connecticut for instance. They lost three players, I think, from their three starters from their championship team last year, and they need a shooter. So they got and get this kid Cam Spencer, who played at Rutgers, for God's sake. He was at Rutgers, and before that, he was at Loyola of Baltimore.
Okay.
Loyola of Maryland. Then he goes to Rutgers, and he's got 1 year left. Connecticut snatches him. He's their leading scorer. He was a perfect fit for them. He's kind of a nasty, kind of a Hurley kind of guy. He's he got into it when they played North Carolina. Remember, he got into it with Bacot, a 6'10" guy, and he goes after him. He's just what they needed.
Yeah, well, you gotta love guys
You go
like
to the
that.
portal and you get a guy.
Yeah.
And the other teams are like that too.
Well, Curry, college basketball has totally changed in terms of us watching it when we were growing up. I mean, you would see the same team for 3-4 years, and now you're going to see it 1 year and they're gone. They're gone after 1 year. If they don't like how the coach is playing them, or they don't get enough minutes, or they don't like that he's not telling. I mean, that's why coaches now don't even get on their players anymore because they're afraid they're going to leave.
It's pro hoops with everybody a free agent every year.
Every year.
I mean, and about to be free agent. Even when you get him, he'll be a free agent next year, maybe, unless you keep
talk
him
about
happy.
the handshake line. I always see when the coaches talk to the opposing players, I'm thinking, saying, "Hey, why don't you come to us next year?"
Well, and that's I'm sure that's illegal, but I'm sure it's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you ever do that?
No, never. No.
All right.
No.
You didn't want to recruit guys that had just.
You didn't want to recruit guys that had
pounded
just
you?
beaten you? Yeah.
I probably should have. I probably should have done that, but I didn't.
Well, you're looking at a coach's perspective, but I'm looking at it as these teams have to just rebuild themselves. Like take the top seeded teams that are going to be, it's Connecticut, it's Purdue, Arizona, Houston,
And every year they're going to be.
We'll take Arizona. They went out and got, and it worked for both schools.
Right.
Caleb Love, North Carolina had their fill of him. He got into the portal, went to Arizona. He's going to be Pac-12 Player of the Year probably. Caleb
Probably
Love.
so.
And Arizona also got Kashid Johnson from San Diego State. Those two guys both have played in the championship game. Remember that.
Right.
So they've got some, they've been
Experience.
there.
Yep.
They've seen what it takes to go 5 games and then get into the 6th game and play for the championship. Baylor's got a guy named L.J. Cryer who has a freshman at, he transferred to Houston. Now he's at Houston this year.
Right.
He played 3 years at Baylor. His freshman year played on the championship team at Baylor in the COVID year. So these teams, and they've gone to the top.
That experience means a lot. Like you say, playing in those games and playing 5 or 6 games where you have to win 6, you can't teach that. You have to experience it, and they've done that. So that brings a lot to the table.
So is there a coach of the year anymore, or is it recruiter of the year?
Yeah, recruiter of the year.
I mean,
without a doubt, right?
Yeah.
Recruiter of the year.
Well, and it's funny how they can go to the portal and pick guys out. I mean, Baylor's been doing this for several years since they won the championship, getting transfers even before there was such a thing as a portal. But the biggest story, the neatest story this year, is the kid at Tennessee, Dalton Knecht, who's probably going to be first-team All-American. He's probably going to be a real high lottery pick.
Yep.
And he came from nowhere. He's a Colorado kid. he grew up in a little town. I wrote this town called Thornton, Colorado. Then he went to a junior college in Sterling, Colorado. Then he goes to northern Colorado.
Yeah.
Triplet,
Right.
a Division I school. And his growth spurt has been terrific. He's now 6'7", 6'8". And they say his work ethic is unbelievable. He gets in the gym, he keeps shooting. He's got like an NBA guy work ethic. But nobody knew about this guy until last year. And then he went in the portal, and he was one of the highest guys ranked in the portal.
Is that right?
Kansas went after him. North Carolina went after him. But his idol is Kevin Durant. And he wanted to play for the guy that coached Kevin Durant at Texas.
Rick Barnes.
And that's Rick
Wow.
Barnes at Tennessee, and that's how he got to Tennessee.
Wow.
And, he put 37 on Carolina in the Dean Dome.
Yep.
He scored 39 against Florida. He put 39 against Auburn last
Yeah.
week. I don't know if you saw that game.
You can stroke it.
Well, he had 21 in the last 12 minutes. I think I texted you.
Right.
I said, this guy is putting a Larry Bird show on Auburn.
That's right.
And they couldn't stop him, and they won that game. Then the next game, Alabama kind of put the clamps on him.
Yeah.
They doubled him everywhere he went, but Tennessee showed they could still win without him. So Tennessee's a real threat to the
They are.
championship, I think.
Oh, because defensively,
because of him.
Because of him offensively, because they struggle offensively in years past. They've always been strong defensively, but for some reason, Rick Barnes' teams don't advance.
Bingo. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's
They
the
don't
problem they've got
advance.
is they got Rick Barnes on the
I
sidelines.
don't know why.
Great
that is.
recruiter.
Well, as
always
you said,
has
they
good
haven't had
players.
offense, though. They give the ball to this guy now. I mean, of course, he's going to get doubled in the tournament and stuff like that. But, yeah, I don't know if Rick tenses up, in tournament time. But you're right. They
Something
don't
happens,
advance.
They don't advance.
But, last year they took out Duke. They were an underdog against Duke, and they boat raced Duke off the court, took him out of the tournament. And that's the kind of thing they did, but then they lost the next game.
Yeah.
So
That's them. That's
yeah.
Tennessee.
Well-
and he was that way with Texas too. Remember when he coached at Texas, he was that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but he's won. I'll tell you, the guy's won 800 games, and he's probably this March in the Final Four. He's probably going to get in the Hall of Fame. He's probably going to get nominated for the Hall of Fame, and he would deserve it, I think.
yeah,
Don't you?
somewhat. Somewhat.
Well-
A quick story. I was on when I went to the Final Four and I was picking up my package. Rick Barnes was right behind me, and I guess he didn't have his glasses on. So he said, "Coach, can you look and see where my tickets are? Because you get your package with the tickets in it." And so I pulled. I said, "Coach, you're in section blah blah blah." He goes, "Damn it, those are awful." And he immediately got in line and was yapping at the people. Go, I'm a Division I coach. I've been coaching for all these years, and these are the best tickets you can give me. And he gave him a hard time about it. It's kind of fun. I sat there and just kind of smiled. So
All right.
Of course,
you're gonna
his
keep
team
him out
wasn't
of the
there.
Hall of Fame for that now.
I think you should. Yeah,
I think.
for abusive.
But I want to talk about coaches,
At
successful
least
coaches.
he didn't get kicked out. I've been kicked out of a Final Four. So
You have?
yeah.
Would you
tell
run on the
us that.
court?
What happened?
Did you run on the court?
No. Yeah, I
court
wasn't
storm?
storming the court. I never got to the court. I was in 1988, Kansas City, when Danny Manning, when they won. Back in that day, and I did not know this, working for a TV station in Oklahoma, well, we had a pecking order that we had to follow teams, and we had to follow Tulsa first because they were in our town.
Right.
We had to follow Oklahoma State second, and we had to follow Oklahoma third. They were all good. They were all in the tournament, but we couldn't follow the other two. We didn't have enough people. So we followed Tulsa. Tulsa loses early. And then I forget, we followed Oklahoma State next, and we were able to get credentials and do that. But Oklahoma's the one that goes to the Final Four, and that fabulous Oklahoma team.
Was it with
Might have
Tisdale?
been Wayman's
Was
last
Tisdale?
year.
Yeah.
What might have been Wayman's last year, but Chu Kennedy and Ricky Grace, and they had a great team. Billy Tubbs coaching, and so we tell the NCAA, hey, we want to come. It's Kansas City. We can drive it from Oklahoma. That's easy to follow Oklahoma. And they said, well, come on up. And actually, CBS, we were the CBS station. We owned the tournament, for crying out loud. And we get to Kansas City. I get some CBS credentials. I go into the first news conference, And I've forgotten the name now, but you guys will remember the head of PR for the NCAA back then.
David
Yes,
something.
him.
Yeah.
Came up to me and says, "That's not you," pointing down at my credential.
Oh, you had the wrong. Yeah.
I couldn't argue with it. It was a CBS Sports credential. And they kicked us out.
There you go. There you go.
We ended up covering it we covered it from outside the arena, did all of our stand-ups and stuff. We were able to get the interviews we needed from the satellite and from CBS's stuff. We had their stuff. And then the CBS guys were great to us. And we did it outside. In fact, one night, the night maybe between the Sunday, between the Saturday and the final game, Lute Olson's walking in through the parking lot, walks right by us. "Hey, Coach, can you come over and chat for a second?" He said, "Sure." We interviewed Lute Olson on our 6 o'clock news because he was going into practice.
Right.
But it was the NCAA was just God. I mean, you don't have that much more media. In fact, you have less like local TV stations because you only got 4 teams left. It's not like you got 16 the week before and all of that. So it's less of a circus, and yet they threw us out.
They threw Bob Stevens under the bus.
They threw me under the bus. Absolutely. All right, now that we've gotten off the track, we got to get back on the track, and we'll do that after this break. We haven't even talked about the women's tournament because there's really only one team playing in the women, 2 teams playing in the women's tournament.
There's only one woman playing in the women's tournament.
Well, there's one woman playing and one coaching, and it would be great if it gets to be Dawn Staley against Caitlin Clark, and
which happened last year.
Which happened
last year, and Caitlin beat him. Which not many people remember that now this year with all the publicity.
It's the only
about
game
Caitlin
South
Clark.
Carolina's lost in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's how good they've been. All right, we're going to come back and talk about Caitlin and talk about Pistol Pete because we got some great stories to tell you from Curry himself, who did stories, cover stories, big deals on Pistol Pete Maravich. We'll also throw a little LeBron in there. When we come back, throwing people under the bus. Welcome back to Under the Bus. Curry Kirkpatrick, Rich Basirico, joining me, Bob Stevens. Let's talk Caitlin Clark and let's talk Pete Maravich. And the two never knew each other, but I'm sure they know a lot about each other, and the families do, after this past weekend when Caitlin Clark set the new all-time Division I both sexes record.
You can't compare it.
On an undramatic,
on a free throw.
On an undramatic free throw, a technical free throw, by the way. They called a cheap technical at the end of the first half. It was funny because she went for a 3 to break the record right before that. And Gus Johnson, doing the game, of course, he's going crazy. And as she's going for the 3 to break the record, he goes, "And this was for American history." It was so great. And she missed it.
Yeah.
She missed it, but then she made the technical foul.
Which I guess means she shouldn't make American history if that was for it and she missed, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
But,
I don't know.
She should make
ESPN
history for women's basketball. That's it.
And give her all the credit in the
Yes,
world.
absolutely.
She's a fabulous player and it sounds like even a better human being, does everything the right way, deserves all the accolades she has gotten.
And she talks about the team all the time. Even after, they interviewed her right at halftime.
Yeah.
After breaks the record. And all she talked about was, we can do better in the second
Well,
half.
and they, because she wanted to beat number 2 in the country, Ohio State. It was a big game for her to win. She's not Pete Maravich.
Well, and the hater,
I mean, she's different from Pete Maravich. They've been linked, and yet they have done it differently.
Yeah, she's become such a star, and now the haters have come out. Though even that guy.
Well, yeah, but I'm not a hater.
No,
I think
no,
she's
no.
terrific. I think she's terrific. But Pistol Pete, his record was based on 83 games. Hers was 130 games.
Yeah.
Totally different. And Pete didn't have the 3-point line.
Right. Or the shot clock.
Correct.
You could hold the ball on Pete, although nobody. Tell me, Curry, could anybody even try to hold the ball on Pete?
Well, I didn't realize it, but Pete did shoot 38 times a game. 38. And I was covering him then. I didn't realize it. 38 times a game. Caitlin's, her highest point total shots in a game is 19.
Okay.
So there is that.
Right.
But he's my boy, and I've always been protective of him.
And
as
it's
she's
neat-
gone for this record.
And it's neat that it has
But-
brought more out. I mean, we had not talked about Pete Maravich in years.
That's
the
true.
numbers were too out in the stratosphere for anyone to even talk about. And the
And you
fact that it
can't-
has brought him back into play to talk about is cool.
And as I said, I've always been
Oh.
kind of protective of him in this record, as people have approached, as men have approached, and now Caitlin's approached and passed it.
Tell us a Pete story.
But I got just a minute on a Caitlin.
Okay.
I did stories long ago on Cheryl Miller and
Lynette Woodard?
Nancy Lieberman.
Okay.
We did cover stories. We put them on the cover, women basketball. So we were in the forefront of that. And I never thought I'd see a matchup of these two women down through the years. And this girl reminds me, she's sort of a combo of Cheryl Miller and Nancy Lieberman because she can do everything. But her hair and the stuff, people are calling her the Ponytail Pete now. She finally got a nickname.
Yeah.
But I've come around to really enjoying her. I mean, she has such an entertainment aspect to her game, and it's a show, which is what Pete was, and so that's the comparison. The comparison I do. That
Best
she's,
women's player you've
She's
seen?
always out. I don't think I still think Cheryl Miller's the best women's player I ever saw.
I would
but-
say Lynette Woodard, but that's that. I'm just.
Well,
I'm getting.
yeah, you can-
It's
you
an
can
argument.
stuff.
Different
Yeah.
flavors.
I,
Yeah.
I have a quick story of Cheryl Miller. Can I share it
Sure.
with you? So the women's national team trained on Hilton Head years ago, and Cheryl Miller was on that team. And Ann Donovan was on that team.
Okay.
So terrific. It was terrific. Teresa Edwards. And the head coach was Kay Yao, who's, God rest her soul, she was the head coach at NC State at the time. And they asked Chuck Welges, who was a terrific man, to get a group of guys together to scrimmage them. She didn't want anybody over 6 feet tall, 6 feet 3 inches tall. So I was asked to play in the game with a bunch of other people. So we played them. First play of the game, shot goes up. I go in the lane to get the rebound, and I feel this forearm come across my chest, literally drove me out of the lane. It was Cheryl Miller. I mean, I couldn't hold my ground. Here I thought I was
Yeah.
a big macho guy, right? Cheryl Miller
Blew you out of the lane.
And she looked really slim, right? You wouldn't
Oh,
think she was
my,
that.
no,
big.
but hard nose. Then I had to guard Teresa Edwards, All-American
Well, you
University
also
of Georgia.
played against Lieberman. Didn't you practice against Lieberman
No,
when she was on Hilton Head?
No, she was there with
Martina.
Martina.
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
playing one-on-one full court. That's what they did. They played one-on-one full court.
Wow.
But I had to guard Teresa Edwards. Forget that. That was. She drove by me like I was, was stuck in mud. But Cheryl Miller really, I was, here with men against girls. Come on. I learned real quick how good they were.
That's good stuff.
Well,
Talk more about Pete.
About Pistol, I did cover stories on him in college, sophomore. We kind of introduced Pistol to America. We put him on the cover when he was a sophomore, middle of his sophomore year, and then again as a senior. And he did a story for us in his own words, and I kind of translated it. And the title of the article that he did in his senior year was "I Want to Put on a Show," and that's the way he played. I mean, he was there for the entertainment. He knew he was the guy that people came to see, and he took that into account. The most vivid game I remember. People don't. The numbers are astounding. You can't imagine it. Even as Caitlin goes for all these numbers, Pistol was. I think Pistol averaged 44 points.
44 a game
in
for his
college.
career for
In
all
college.
3 years. Yeah.
Think about that.
All 3 years. And the game I remember the most, it was in Hawaii at the Rainbow Classic. It was an 18 tournament then, played, and LSU wasn't that good that year.
They were never that good.
They never were that good. And
They never went to the tournament.
And he never played on a pro team that was any good either,
No,
by
that's
the
right.
way.
Yeah.
His team's never won a
If we
championship,
get to that.
ever.
Yeah.
But they played St. John's in the semifinals of the Rainbow Classic. He had 13 at the half, and St. John's was up by 10. So, and St. John's was mostly black guys from New York, and really good team.
Right.
Pete had in the second half. Pete put 40 on him in the one half. In the second half,
In
he
20
put 40 on St.
Without
John's.
a 3-point line.
And at the half, and as the half ended, as the game ended, LSU was in a runaway now. He hooks it in from about 40 feet to get his 40 points in the second half. the buzzer sounded, the St. John's team, the bench, they came up and all of them surrounded Pete and embraced him. In those days,
Court storming by the other team.
Well, they had, in those days, there wasn't any ESPN, there was no internet. They had not seen this guy until that game.
Right.
And all these black guys from New York, they were just like, they couldn't believe it. This kid was so good. And they embraced him and
How about that?
slapped. And he played LSU played in the final against Yale and lost the game.
Oh, no.
And Pete was outscored 35-34 by a little white guard named Jimmy Morgan. And that was kind of his career in a nutshell. These spectacular performances, but they didn't win anything.
Yeah.
And people get down on Pete for his pro career. The other night, there was somebody on TV saying that his college game didn't translate to pros. Pete Maravich was one of when they voted in the century, he's one of the 50 greatest players in the century in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So to say that, and he led the league in scoring. He made a ton of all-star teams. He sold out everywhere he went.
And there have only been 4 guys who've had their NBA jersey retired by 3 different teams, and Pete's one of them.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Well, New Orleans the first time, and then when the Pelicans they went ahead and retired his number, even though he was never alive, I don't think, when the Pelicans played, because it was New Orleans. And then and
it was the
Utah.
Jazz.
Yeah,
and it was the
yeah,
Jazz.
yeah. So,
and his teammate on the Jazz, I later did a story on Pete late in his career when he was 30. His 9th year, I think he played 10 years in the NBA. And when he was playing on, a terrible knee and through these injuries, and he had a teammate on the New Orleans Jazz named Rich Kelly, who was a center from Stanford.
Okay.
He was kind of a hippie philosopher. And he once, in my story, he once gave me this great quote about Pete. He called Pistol Pete Maravich an American phenomenon, a stepchild of the human imagination. I mean, when you think of that, that's so, it's unbelievable. But that's the way Pete was. I do hope Caitlin's career after college is much happier than Pete's was, because Pete was not happy in the NBA. Right. He was always paranoid that people didn't like him, people didn't care about him. They always criticized him for his team losing. His teams were terrible with the Hawks. He got drafted in the Hawks. Right. He played about 4 years there. Then he went home to New Orleans, played for the Jazz. And he loved New Orleans, he loved Louisiana, but they could never win there either. He once told me, he said, "Curry, we got beat one night in Phoenix by 43, and they blame me." I mean, what?
2 guys who were drafted ahead of him. He was the 3rd pick coming out of college. Who were the 2 guys drafted ahead of him?
Bob Lanier.
Lanier was 1. Rudy Tomjanovich was 2.
Wow.
That's just great to get his name into the conversation.
But Pistol Pete, they said if he had the 3-point line, he would average 57 points a game.
I mean, that's even more than Wilt, and Wilt's numbers are outrageous.
But what's the thing about Pete, we really haven't talked about, is as much as scoring he did
was his passing.
His passing was amazing. He sealed the floor so well, and his underhand pass and different things that he did that. They said, well, Magic Johnson did that. Well, Pete did it before Magic Johnson.
Yeah. He was Magic Johnson. He was Cousy after Cousy, I wrote, and Magic before Magic. He would come down on the break, and nobody knew, including his teammates, would not know what he was going to do, because he always wanted to throw it behind his back, between his legs, behind a guy's back, go around. But back.
Do you think he always knew what was going to happen with the ball, or did he kind of just free winging it? And okay, if they give it to me, I'll take it, and if they don't, I'll do something else.
I saw him play in the NIT at Madison Square Garden, and he was coming down on the break
against Marquette.
And
they lose that too.
They didn't win that yet.
Yeah.
But he's coming down. He went through his legs, like he took a pass, went through his legs, and went through the defender's legs to a perfect bounce pass to his teammate going in for a layup. Yeah, it was amazing.
Well, he was always called the first white globetrotter, and that's what he was. He played the game like the Globetrotters do. If any of our audience remember seeing the Globetrotters, that's what this guy was. And I just wish he died very young, 40, I think at 40 of a heart attack, and he was out. Shooting around with a Christian team out in Pasadena, California, and he found Christ late in life, and he was happy, and I like that about him.
I interviewed him in Oklahoma for TV. He happened to be in town doing a speech, a Christian speech. He had done a church service. He had done, and did a little exhibition, a little basketball exhibition, whatever. It happened to be the same day that Jack Nicklaus won the Masters in '86, but he had found, he was a delightful
Was he a good guy to
discussion,
interview?
and I'm sure he was not always that way because he
was terrific to talk to.
Yeah, okay.
Because he'd tell stories about himself. He was coached by his dad. He grew up in North Carolina in Raleigh, and his dad was Pete Maravich, who coached North Carolina State, and then he got the job at LSU.
He coached at Clemson, too.
He coached at Clemson before NC State. And the thing is, Pete used to always said, my dad is the greatest coach who ever lived. The ironic part about it was his dad never coached Pete. He just let him do whatever he wanted because he says, I got a guy that is better than anybody, and he didn't really coach him. He never really coached him.
Didn't need to.
Yeah.
Didn't really need to. All right, while we're talking about guys scoring a lot of points, LeBron hit 40,000 this last week.
It's a lot of points.
First time that's ever happened in the NBA. You can say, okay, well, it's the NBA and it's today's NBA and things are different. You realize that's more points than Magic and Larry Bird combined.
Wow.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I never even thought
That
about
is
that.
more points than Magic and Larry Bird combined. That's
But then
That's pretty good.
Then can I throw
Yeah.
LeBron halfway under?
throw
Throw
him
him
halfway.
fully
Because then
under the
after
bus.
this great night, and everybody's happy. Of course, they lose the game.
Yeah,
But
that's
he
right.
gets his 40,000, and he has a press conference after the game, and he starts in on saying, when I first came as 18, whatever, to the NBA, everybody wanted me to fail. I mean, I was around then, LeBron.
Yeah.
That's just not true.
No.
He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated before he played a pro game, calling him the chosen one. ESPN put all his high school games on TV. You think all those people in the media wanted him to fail?
No.
It's just not. I guess this is what presses him on. These are the things these guys use.
You got to have the
Michael
motivation. Yeah.
Michael Jordan always
Always
made
did
up
that.
stuff.
Yeah.
that-
Well, nobody
spurred him
ever thought Michael would ever be any good either.
But for
they were all
LeBron to
against
say
him.
everybody wanted him to fail is just not right.
That's LeBron,
And why he would
Curry.
throw
That's
that
LeBron.
negative thing
Yeah,
on
He does it all
on
the
a night
time.
of such enjoyment.
That's why I'm not a fan of his
it's
at
very
all. He's a
strange.
great player, but not a fan.
While we're talking NBA, real quickly, Celtics beat the Warriors by 52, and most of it in the first half.
Everybody's talking. Come on, everybody's talking about this game. What is it? What are we in? Early March?
Yeah.
The
you
NBA's
gotta find
got
something
NBA's
to
got
talk about
NBA's
between now
got
and
like
then.
6 more months to go. In Golden State, what they
They're
were.
not the team they've been.
Well, weren't they they'd won 3 games on the road
They
trip.
were actually moving pretty well.
no, they've done better. Yes.
Stevie Kerr did the right thing, and I think you have to do that in the NBA. You know
But
what?
does
Every once in a while,
anybody
you're going to lay an egg.
Sure.
And he said, "Hey, we're just flushing that down the toilet. I don't even care what happened. We're
Get 'em
we're
outta
going
here.
on."
Yeah.
And I guess that's how you have to
Well,
do
you
it.
play
The
that many
playoffs are coming.
games, you're going to have some games that you don't bring your A game to. Boston's very good. Tatum, I mean, they're very, very good.
But
They'll
you're
be-
not watching them, right? You're not watching them until the playoffs.
No, to the playoffs.
They were very good last year, also.
I know. They got beat.
Come on.
All right, when we come back, we're going to throw some other people under the bus, kind of a speed round. What are we calling that? The speed bump round? Is that what you want to call that, Justin? All right, we're going to do that when we come back under the bus. Welcome back to Under the Bus. Corey Kirkpatrick, Rich Basirico, and me, Bob Stevens, throwing folks under the bus. We've done a lot of that today. We're going to do some more. We got some NFL talk to get into, but first I want to talk about a guy who probably should be thrown under the bus for his NFL performances, and that's Johnny Manziel. He's going to boycott the Heisman Trophy ceremonies going forward until Reggie Bush gets his Heisman back.
You think anybody cares?
Yeah, I was
Does
just
anybody
gonna ask
care?
that.
They're probably glad
Does he have
Johnny
to call him
Manziel's-
up and ask for tickets
Right.
now?
They probably care that he doesn't come to any of their functions, right?
2 more seats.
He's boycotting it?
He's going to boycott the Heisman until Reggie Bush gets his.
I've boycotted Johnny Manziel since he was in college. I mean,
What a mess that
I
was.
mean, he just wants some attention, right?
Yeah.
Of course he does. I mean,
Another guy who's got some attention coming his way will likely be Russell Wilson. Before there was Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, there was Russell Wilson and Ciara. She's still doing just fine. He is doing just fine too. He's going to get paid $39 million next year if he doesn't play. And,
But even if he plays,
and for
does
$1
he get
million
paid?
more, you can have him. That's all. I mean, he can play for the minimum.
Explain something to me. Now,
Yes,
now
I don't-
Denver's
I can't
got
help you.
$85 million of dead money.
Yes.
I don't know what dead money. What
That
is
money
dead
goes,
money?
Well, it goes to you and to Rich.
Well, that'd be
that's the good part. Well, the bad part is it goes against their cap, I think. and
well.
they-
What this means
it
is
gives them less money to spend on.
Yeah.
Right.
What it means
replacement.
is Ciara
Yeah.
is going to have to get some live money by making more albums or being in more movies. She's in the current movie, the color purple.
Color Purple,
She's
right.
doing that movie, and a lot of people don't know. You know, see, if they go to what if Russell Wilson goes to Vegas, and Ciara can do a thing at one
Sure,
of the
that'd be
hotels.
perfect.
Yeah, Vegas ought to be after.
You
The
know,
Raiders ought to go get her.
You know, Ciara's named for a perfume that Revlon had called Ciara. That's what she's named for. Her first husband was the rapper Future. You know that? Her first husband. Now her second husband might be the past. So I mean, I know it's a terrible line, but I
No, you had to do it.
He's thinking that all last night.
he was
All
just
last
waiting.
night.
It was just hanging there.
she's
wasn't
gone
it?
from future to past. So no,
Can he
but
still play?
I think
Sure.
I think he
so.
got a bad rap in Denver. I mean, Sean Payton hated him from the beginning. They're showing tape now, which I don't remember seeing during the season, of Payton on the sidelines just yelling right in Russell Wilson's face, right on sidelines in front of him.
they almost came
I've
to
never
blows.
seen a coach do that to a player. I didn't realize that happened. So he hated him all along. And the guy before him, Hackett, was a hack. So I think Russell Wilson, now he's got something to prove still again. I think, he threw 25 touchdowns this year and 6 interceptions or something.
Yeah, it
he
wasn't
was a
bad.
top 5 in
He still has
quarterback
game.
rating.
He definitely still has game. I mean, all these NFL teams, talking about the quarterbacks they want to draft in the first round, 1, 2, and 3, and so forth. How many quarterbacks over the last 4 or 5 years have not made it being drafted in the first round? They put so much emphasis. Yes, you do need a good quarterback, without a doubt. The Giants are going to get rid of Jones. So you're going to draft who? McCarthy from Michigan? I mean, who are you going to draft?
Is he going to be any better? And you don't know.
They think they know. They
Unless
think
you have an
but they
offensive
don't
line,
know.
you don't.
That's right.
That-
I agree with Bob. 100%.
To me, it's all fit.
Well, that gets us
Russell
back to
fit
the-
in Seattle. He didn't never fit in Denver. Roethlisberger fit in Pittsburgh, and that's why it worked, even though he was a lower pick.
Well, that gets us back to the draft this year
Yeah.
because now the Bears have this decision. Apparently, they've made it. They're going to draft Caleb Williams first and start all over. So they're going to get rid of Justin Fields. Here's another guy I think is vastly underrated. I mean, he's going to go somewhere and be a star. I think.
Absolutely.
And just like you said, why not keep Justin Fields and get people to play around him?
Correct.
Use the first round
That's
to get
right.
Harrison or get somebody that
Get
can.
Harrison. Well, they have 2 picks in the first
Yeah, yeah,
round. They
yeah.
have 1 and 9, I
Nine,
think.
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Or trade back and pick up, trade to Washington, still get a good quarterback, get 2 or 3 draft picks out of that, and then you trade Fields and get another 2 picks from him. You end up with 5 picks and still.
and you don't
But I
know.
agree with you about keep Fields. You know what you have, and surround him with great players.
And you've also been the learning curve. Fields now, I'm sure, is a lot smarter and a lot better football player than the guy you drafted a couple of years ago. And you went through all the pain, as John Cooper used to tell me. Don't show me the pain, show me the baby. Now the baby is ready to go.
Right,
and
that's right.
it's grown up a little bit.
But
I
think
think
of all the
somebody-
number
Well,
one
he's
quarterbacks.
handled this thing. Justin Fields has with such class and grace, and he couldn't have handled it better. So, I hope he, where he goes, he becomes. I think he's going to be a star in the league. And everybody says, well, where would he be in this year's draft? And somebody said he'd be number 2, right behind Caleb Williams. So he's had 3 years already to work on it.
Why get rid of him?
And there's not in Caleb Williams. There's some red flags went up right this week. He didn't want to take a physical. What's all that? What's that all about?
Yeah, he's
And his dad is kind of running things, and I mean, aren't those
That's not
some little?
usually a good. Yeah,
aren't
that's,
those some?
That's not good
I mean,
at
Rich,
all.
why did the guy not want to take a
That
physical?
doesn't make sense to me unless he's hiding something.
Well, that's
and
what.
that's the red flag. That is a red flag. If I'm picking number 1 overall and you don't want to take a physical, I don't know if I'm drafting
well,
you.
the Bears are going to give him a physical. I guarantee you that. But,
I'd have Richard Dent giving the physical, knock him around a
But
little
think
bit.
of the number 1 picks over the last couple of years. Darnold, Rosen,
Right.
Zach Wilson. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
all West Coast guys, by the way. I mean, look at Southern Cal quarterbacks that have gone number 1. Has there ever been? I mean,
Leinart.
they've all been, busts basically, BUST. So,
How about Trey Lance?
Could we throw him under the bus?
Think about that. 49ers traded 3 round picks, 3 first-round picks to get Trey Lance. He's not even with them anymore. He's with Dallas.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson, number 2 overall pick, going to be gone with the Jets, and they all put this emphasis: we got to get this. We got to get this quarterback. Why? Look at the track record. Look at it now. Mahomes, yes, but Mahomes wasn't even the first. He was first round, but not the. He was like
He
the
was the 10th pick. Yeah.
You know, so I build around like the Giants with Jones. He's not that bad. Build around him. He didn't have an offensive line. You're going to go out and get a.
are you talking about the Giants again?
Yes, sir.
Please.
I got to talk to all my
Please.
buds in New York. They want to hear about the
This is
Giants.
the best time of the year to be a Giants fan because they haven't lost yet.
I want to go to the West Coast again and throw
Yeah.
somebody else under the
Okay.
bus. It's a weekly under the bus guy for us. Mick Cronin, the UCLA basketball coach. Okay, we've thrown him on several times. He's got so much tire tax on him, but he got beat at Washington. Both Washington schools beat him last week, and after the Washington loss, he comes out in the press and he basically says he's going to fire his whole team. He's going to portalize his whole
Portal them
team.
all out, yeah.
And he came out because he said
They
I
can
said
all
to
go
him,
to St. John's and play for Patino.
he said we weren't competitive. I told my guys we weren't competitive. I told them in the locker room, I can't build a team with players that don't fight. I can't build this team with you guys. And he came out, and the press asked him, well, does that mean you're going to twitch your own? He's going to pull a Deion Sanders and fire his whole team. Now, that's Washington. Then the next game, he gets beat by Washington State, and they're at least competitive. And then he comes out, and he bitches about the referees again, just like he did when he almost beat Arizona. Yeah. He said, we're up by 13. We can't hold on to the ball. We're called every time we're called for a foul, every time down the court. We kept fouling, even though they're pressing us and they're calling us for the fouls. This guy is a trip. Yeah. You got to watch his press conference because he's like a little pot of steam. He's like his head is about to get blown off every time, and you can tell. I mean, I think the guy, and I think I told you this before. I saw him live in Atlanta earlier this year when they got beat by Ohio State, and I was down on the floor because we had tickets from North Carolina who was playing Kentucky in the second game. And the Ohio State and UCLA game is terrible. Both teams are terrible, but Ohio State's blowing them out. Cronin is walking up and down in front of his sideline, MFing everything. The refs, his team, his coach, his assistant coaches. One assistant coach got up and started to scream at the team also. He told the guy, I could hear him. People around could hear him because fifth row up, they could hear the guy talk. He's screaming at his assistant coach, you MFer, sit the MF down. I want your ass, excuse me, I can't say it. Effing sit effing down. He's screaming at his assistant coach. I told Rich about that. He said, I'm walking if that happens. I'm out of there. And how he gets away with it, he's MFing his players. I don't know how UCLA keeps this guy.
Well, and you're talking about the way
he's
the
a
players,
Huggins disciple, isn't he? Because he came up Cincinnati.
Huggins,
he's a
exactly
Huggins
right.
guy. Yeah,
exactly right.
Huggins over the edge. Huggins was bad.
You think Huggins could have got the UCLA job? This guy is a little kind of Napoleon guy, and he walks around. He walks up and down. You gotta watch this guy.
I've watched him. I've never been a fan of his. I've never been a fan of his.
He's
but
very hateable.
When your players don't play, like you say, he's talking about them not having. That's a reflection of him.
How is he going to recruit the L.A. area with this guy?
I don't know.
How does he?
Money.
And he doesn't.
Today's world, it's money.
But Rich, he didn't. That's why he went to Europe and got all these Europeans this year because nobody in California will play for the guy.
Well, why would you play for him?
How does UCLA stay with him?
And that's UCLA. Yeah, they're going to have a tough time in the Big Ten.
The wooden conservative UCLA.
Yeah.
They're letting this guy go up and down the court MFing the whole world. It's unbelievable.
Coach Wooden would not stand
Oh
for
my!
it.
Oh,
Indeed. All right. Anyone else you want to throw under the bus?
Yes, I want
Yes.
to throw off the general managers at the combine.
Okay.
Because all they want to do is measure the size of their hands,
Yes.
the length of their arms, how high they jump.
Yeah.
Can they play? That's what I want to know. Can they play? We're not gonna get this quarterback or this lineman because his arms aren't long enough. You got to be kidding me!
how about the guy from Texas that ran the record-breaking 40?
Yeah, he weighs 167 pounds.
With no, he ran it with no
Right.
no uniform on, right, and no ball in his hand, right?
And no helmet.
yeah.
No
Somebody
helmet.
said no helmet, and somebody said, "Yeah, I'd like them. I want to see what the guy can run in football pads."
With a guy chasing him.
But then another guy said the guy from that 40-yard dash, he's going to make about $2-3 million more dollars
Because of that, because of his
He
speed.
might go first,
Right.
first
Yeah, he
round.
might be.
Yeah.
So just think, if your hands
Worthy.
were large,
His name
if
is
your-
Worthy.
If your hands were big,
Yeah.
you might make more money.
Unbelievable.
I don't think the GMs are worthy to judge this guy on just his 40
I think for all
It's
this
a terrible
testing-
one. With that, we got to
And
get
on
out
that
of here.
note, thanks to Trey and Mahogany and the crew here at USC Beaufort and our producer, Justin Jarrett, for Rich Basirico and Kirk Kirkpatrick. Thanks for joining us. We got lots to talk about next week as well.
Sure.
Under the bus.